institutes get tired. They'd have to have something new to talk about. They can't forever say, we have a recovery, we have a recovery, we have a recovery.
Welcome to Shadow of Truth, and today is Monday, March 21st, 2016, and your hosts are Dave Kranzler from InvestmentResearchDynamics.com and Rory Hall, and I'm with thedailycoin.org. Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, thanks, Rory. Thanks for asking. I'm real excited to get Dr. Paul Craig Roberts on the phone here and chat with him. I had a quick phone conversation with him last night, and he's fired up about a lot of things.
Yes, he is. And the article that he just released on Sunday was awesome, and we're gonna pick that thing apart, and we're gonna dive into Putin, the economy, Trump and Sanders, and a couple other things thrown in for fun.
And just for clarification, the listeners can read his latest article, Democracy Struggles to Recover from Betrayal, at paulcraigroberts.org.
Yep. Well, let's get him on the line.
Sounds good to me. I've been looking at this election, and kind of Trump has this, to me, at first it was a mystifying popularity, and it seems to be growing. I mean, the cult of Trump seems to be growing on a daily basis. And he's just annihilated his opponents in just about almost every primary. There's been a couple where he's lost or it's been close, but he seems to be overwhelmingly, at least the popular choice amongst the Republicans. And then kind of the same thing with Bernie Sanders. And it seems like there's a rejection of the establishment going on. And so, Dr. Roberts, Rory and I were just wondering, what do you think's going on here with the psyche of the American public and the dynamic of this election process? Because I haven't seen anything like it in the probably close to 42 plus years that I've been observing elections.
Well, I agree with your observations. I see it as a very hopeful sign, not because of the qualities of the candidates' positions on issues or anything, but because they are both outsiders, they are both hated by their parties' establishments. And I think probably that's what the public is responding to. The public, I think, by now has learned that the political establishment represents the 1%, not them, that they have no chance with any establishment candidate of the Republicans or the Democrats. And so they have this opportunity. There are two people who are not part of the Washington establishment, certainly not Trump, and Sanders really not. I mean, he's really on the outs with the Democratic establishment. And so they are turning to them, and I think they're supporting them less for their stance on issues and more on the fact that maybe there's a chance that they would do something for the 99%. So I see that as a hopeful sign that people, or some people, not all of them, of course. I mean, Hillary's got strong support. Certainly a representative of the 1%, Hillary is. And everybody has to know that by now. So I'm surprised to see, for example, that Black Americans in South Carolina voted for her. It's like they vote for their enemies. Can probably take hope from the fact that Trump, I think, has the Republican nomination if they will allow him to have it. I mean, they may simply refuse to recognize his delegates. The Republicans in Georgia once did that to Ron Paul's delegates. They just wouldn't recognize them. So,
and I wanted to ask you about that aspect, Dr. Roberts, because the last time that we spoke, you said that even if Trump was elected, that he wouldn't be able to, garner the support that he needs in order to pull off some of the things or put into place some of the policies that he's been bringing to the table. And do you still see it in that light? I mean, and
Oh,
especially
yes.
with what you just said.
Yeah, yes, of course. But we were just talking about the hopeful sign that people are choosing Trump, and increasingly they seem to be choosing Sanders. A friend of mine who watches all this closely told me that Hillary has now had to change her tune, and she's now saying the same thing Sanders. She's saying, me too, me too. And that's a big change in the way she was campaigning. So it kind of shows that she's afraid of being eroded by switch of public support to Sanders. So we were first talking about that it's a favorable sign that many voters see that the official candidates have nothing whatsoever to do with them. And so they're taking a chance that maybe unofficial candidates like Trump and Sanders would have something to do with them. I mean, they have to be hated by the media and the party establishments for some reason. And so the people are aligning. The more the media beats up on Trump and Sanders, the more the people support them. So it's kind of like they're getting elected by the media attacks on them, or getting chosen by the media attack. So this shows people are clued in, or getting clued in. So I think that's hopeful. Now, if one or the other of them were to get into office, what could they do? Probably not very much, because certainly not Trump. He's not experienced in Washington, in foreign affairs, in economic policy. He doesn't really know what to do about the issues. Who would he appoint? Even if he knew, could he get them past the Senate? The Senate has to confirm presidential appointees. For example, if he was decided to appoint me or Dave or you, the Senate simply wouldn't confirm us.
Speak for yourself.
So, well, they wouldn't confirm you, Dave. That's for sure. You're one of my co-authors.
Good point. I'm worried about getting on an airplane.
He has me on his show. He has you. So you see, but the point, I'm not making a personal point. I'm making the point about if you come up with people who are not establishment, who are going to be changing things, you're going to have a hard time getting them confirmed. So even if he knew these people, he would be up against the trouble of getting them confirmed. Most likely, Trump's government will be staffed up by the establishment. You know, I'm just reading a very interesting book by Mike Lofgren called The Deep State. And he points out that the same people have been in office, regardless of political party, for the last 30 years. It's the same people in the Pentagon, the same people in the State Department, the same people in the National Security Council, the same people in the financial agencies. They just come and go. They're always there, same people. So the policy is essentially independent of the president. So it's not clear that Trump or Sanders could change anything. It may well be that Obama intended to do all the things he said. It's the reason people voted for him the first time, because he was against everything. But really, he was staffed up by the same people. The same neoconservatives in the Bush administration controlled his foreign policy, his National Security Council, his UN ambassador, the same Goldman Sachs financial executives that ran the Treasury for Bush run it for him. It's the same people. So what can the president do, you see? I think one reason the establishment chose Obama was that he was inexperienced. He was a one-term senator. He didn't know anything. He's easy to control. They always like somebody easy to control. They didn't like Reagan because he had definite ideas, some things he wanted to do that they didn't want to happen. They didn't want the Cold War to end. It's too profitable. They didn't agree with his economic policy because Wall Street thought it would explode inflation and ruin their stock and bond portfolios. All the effort I had to make in the Treasury, my opponents were Wall Street. And everybody thinks that we were doing this for Wall Street, that we were cutting taxes for them. They were beating up on me continually. So the whole notion that the president can bring change is, I think, far-fetched. The way change would have to come, you would have to elect a president who had been part of a movement for some time. And this movement had attracted people of ability, understanding, who were committed to change, who knew what needed to be done. And the movement would have to be successful enough to have an impact on Congress, either by changing some of the personnel there or by convincing the ones that are there that they had to accept this change. That's the only way you can get it. You can't just have a guy pop up and say, okay, elect me president, I'm going to do this, that, and the other, because he doesn't know. He doesn't know the hundreds of people that you have to appoint in these positions to be able to formulate and implement the policy that you want. In fact, he probably doesn't even know what to do. He might have some ideas in some areas, and so it gets captured, and presidents get captured by their briefings. You know, whoever briefs the president on secret intelligence, he's their captive. How does he know any different? So it's very difficult to get change. I think all we can conclude is that American people, to a larger extent than we have previously seen, are now aware that the system is not serving them and that they are being driven down. Now, out of that, a movement could come. There could be a movement. So that finishes my answer to that, Rory, but I would add one other thing. We also talked about the possibility that if they felt they couldn't control Trump or had lost control of him, he would probably be a target for assassination.
That was going to be another question that I had for you. How do you?
Yeah, and now
they assassinated Kennedy in broad daylight. I mean, and Trump would be, why would he be any different, right? Or what would make him special?
Right. You see, this is already now discussed by more people. I mean, you know, I brought it up, but it's now something that's discussed in the internet. And I think we talked about previously too, Rory, that remember the commanding general of the British military not long ago said that if Jeremy Corbyn were to win the election, they would not let him be prime minister. The military would just step in and remove him. So there's no respect for democracy there. You see what I'm saying? This is a sign that the establishment will not accept change. And if it means overturning democracy or not letting the people's choice assume office, that doesn't bother the commanding general of the British military. We have also seen statements from prominent Europeans and European political analysts that if Marine Le Pen in France were to win the presidential elections, the CIA would have her assassinated. They're not going to permit France to leave the orbit that Washington controls. This has been said publicly. They've said the same thing about Farage in the UK, that if his party were to end up, you know, all of this refugee problem is boosting parties like Farage and Marine Le Pen.
Yep.
And it's hurting the traditional parties, which are already weak. And so this is the reason there are these kinds of discussions in Europe about, well, would they really let Marine Le Pen? And they said no. The CIA wouldn't tolerate it. They wouldn't tolerate Farage, because both of these are against American domination. They're against the EU. They don't want their countries in the EU. And so if they're not in the EU, it means they're going to have an independent foreign policy. That's not what the United States will accept. We don't want European countries to have independent foreign policies. We need them as a cover for our war crimes. We need them to give an excuse or support for American ambitions and American hegemony. And so we're not going to turn loose of them. So to bring change, I think, short a movement, a big movement in the United States that prepares a leader who knows what to do, who's battle-scarred, and has a huge following that can not only vote him in, but provide him with the intellectual ammunition to implement change. That's what we don't have yet. And possibly it'll come out of the Sanders effort or the Trump effort.
Do you think that Sanders is going to split the Democratic vote and thereby moving everybody toward, allowing Trump to be elected? Or is he even going to be allowed, if say he wins the nomination and it comes down to Hillary and Trump, would he be allowed to win?
I don't think the establishment will allow Trump or Sanders, if they can prevent it, to win. Now, we already have prominent Republicans stating that if Trump wins the Republican nomination, they're going to vote for Hillary. And you have to remember, this has happened before. This happened to Goldwater. Goldwater was defeated by the Republicans, the Rockefeller Republicans, who refused to support him and voted the other side. So this could happen to Trump. He could lose the establishment part of the party and simply go down to defeat because they go vote for Hillary. Because you see, the establishment of both parties, they're more interested to control the party than they are to win the election. And so if an outsider comes in and wins, then they tend to lose control. This is the reason the establishment didn't like Reagan. He was an outsider. And they were mainly concerned with control, to keep control of the party. So that's what you have with both parties. For example, if Trump gets the nomination, the Republican establishment is more threatened by him than they are by Hillary winning the election. If Sanders were to get the Democratic nomination because of the voters, the Democratic Party is more threatened by Sanders than they are by Trump, because an outsider disrupts their loss of control. I can remember when Reagan won, the Republican establishment in Washington was saying, this is serious because we have 8 years of Reagan, and then what if we have 8 years of Kemp? Because everybody saw Kemp as a rising star. Then we've got 16 years out of power. Our whole control of the party's gone. We're wiped out. And in fact, the Republican Party has been wiped. The Republican establishment was wiped out by the neoconservatives. Look, Jim Baker, those people that were so prominent, they no longer have any clout. Remember how they tried to intervene to stop the Iraq War on the grounds that it was going to lead to a quagmire and utter disaster? And they had no impact whatsoever. So while the Republicans were worried about Ronald Reagan and Jack Kemp, the neocons came in and took over the party. Well, they're the establishment now. So they don't like Trump because Trump says, I'll work things out with Putin. They don't want things worked out. Trump also says, we've got to reinvestigate 9/11. Well, this drives the neocons wild. I mean, you have to ask yourself, if the 9/11 story was true, why would the neocons care if it was reinvestigated?
Exactly.
But they are so opposed to it. So quite clearly, there's something wrong with the story. Otherwise, you'd say, sure, go investigate it.
Yeah, we have nothing to hide, so go ahead.
But
here's the official report, and you take it from there.
Yeah. So these are the kinds of problems that people maybe are not aware of the real functioning of things. And I think that, again, repeating myself, we can be happy that the showing of Trump and Sanders, despite whatever their positions are on the issues, I don't think that's why people are supporting them. I think they're supporting them because they are not part of the same old group, the same old control elite group. Not that Trump wouldn't be a member of the elite, a billionaire, but he does seem not to be a member of the elite political establishment. So there you have it.
That concludes part one, and if you will click the screen where instructed, it will take you directly to part two, and it'll pick up exactly where we left off right here. Thank you so much.
By now, has learned that the political establishment represents the 1%, not them, that they have no chance with any establishment candidate of the Republicans or the Democrats. And so they have this opportunity. There are two people who are not part of the Washington establishment, certainly not Trump, and Sanders really not. I mean, he's really on the outs with the Democratic establishment. And so they are turning to them, and I think they're supporting them less for their stance on issues and more on the fact that maybe there's a chance that they would do something
here and chat with him. I had a quick phone conversation with him last night, and he's fired up about a lot of things.
Yes, he is. And the article that he just released on Sunday was awesome, and we're gonna pick that thing apart, and we're gonna dive into Putin, the economy, Trump and Sanders, and a couple other things thrown in for fun.
And just for clarification, the listeners can read his latest article, Democracy Struggles to Recover from Betrayal, at paulcraigroberts.org.
Yep. Well, let's get him on the line.
Sounds good to me. I've been looking at this election and kind of the American public and the dynamic of this election process, because I haven't seen anything like it in the probably close to 42 plus years that I've been observing elections.
Well, I agree with your observations. I see it as a very hopeful sign, not because of the qualities of the candidates' positions on issues or anything, but because they are both outsiders. They are both hated by their parties' establishments. And I think probably that's what the public is responding to. The public, I think, prostitutes get tired. They'd have to have something new to talk about. They can't forever say, we have a recovery, we have a recovery, we have a recovery.
Welcome to Shadow of Truth, and today is Monday, March 21st, 2016, and your hosts are Dave Kranzler from InvestmentResearchDynamics.com and Rory Hall. and I'm with thedailycoin.org. Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, thanks, Rory. Thanks for asking. I'm real excited to get Dr. Paul Craig Roberts on the phone. Trump has this. To me, at first, it was a mystifying popularity, and it seems to be growing. I mean, the cult of Trump seems to be growing on a daily basis, and he's just annihilated his opponents in just about almost every primary. There's been a couple where he's lost or it's been close, but he seems to be overwhelmingly, at least the popular choice amongst the Republicans. And then kind of the same thing with Bernie Sanders. And it seems like there's a rejection of the establishment going on. And so Dr. Roberts, Rory and I were just wondering, what do you think's going on here with the psyche of the American